Good morning. I'm encouraged by the beautiful sun. This is probably the nicest weekend that we've had in the entire summer, it feels like. So it's great to see so many faces here today that have come. Grow Nashua has been here in the community for about 8 years. We definitely are grateful for UU's partnership throughout the years in many different ways. And one of the things that we're going to share a couple things with you today, in particular about the Lil Free Farmstand. I wanted to share a little bit about Grow Nashua in general and what we're doing in the community. And one of the, I think a great way to kind of share what we're doing is oftentimes with a story. So one of my favorite stories, a lot of the work that we do in the community is about connecting with people. So we have programs that exist, like community gardens, and we have school elementary programming and school gardens. We have a curbside compost program. We have the Lil Free Farmstand. Most of our programs seek to serve low-income families, and it's interesting to be able to connect with also the other side of people who are able to pay for curbside compost service. So it's kind of like this dichotomy of like, we're connecting with people who can afford to throw away their food scraps and pay for that service, and we're also connecting with people who cannot afford to put any food on their family's table. So by connecting with these people and building these programs, we've realized that over the years, and we've kind of just gone a step at a time. So in our first year, we kind of had this concept of like, hey, it seems as though people would like to probably grow their own food that live in the inner city. You know, imagine a family who lives in the inner city, has an apartment, maybe has 2 jobs, one of which is a night job, and they're kind of in a cramped apartment anyways. They don't really have a place to grow food. That was kind of our first thought was, are there people like that? And then as we started to look, we found out, oh yeah, there are people like that. And a lot of the people that are in that situation also have come from other places in the world and might be coming with their own experience where they used to have a lot of space to grow food. We have a significant amount of immigrant families that live in Nashua. We also have a significant amount of refugee families. So we kind of thought, oh, well, maybe we'll try this out. And in our first season, one of the things that we did was we partnered with St. Joseph Hospital, and we built a garden. And through conversations and through volunteering, I had heard people express that, yeah, they wanted to grow some food and they would be interested. But you all know that, like, when you do something, when you put something together, people say they're coming, and sometimes they just don't. And so you put in a lot of effort, and you're like, that doesn't. So a lot of this was on faith, right? That this was the right decision, and that this was something that was needed, and just believing in that by taking steps as a person in the community, you could make a difference. So the first season we worked with the United Way, and we had this big day where 50 people came out and we built this beautiful garden, and we had yet to have actual feedback of people are going to show up to grow in this garden. And that night we had a meeting, and the meeting was specifically with several African ladies that I had met, who also recruited some other African ladies, all mothers, who wanted to grow some food. And they came to the meeting, and we sat at the YMCA, and we had this exchange of language where I could speak English, this one woman could speak English and Swahili, this other one could speak French and Swahili. So it was like there was a lot of pauses in conversation and listening and watching and using a lot of expression in our faces, or in my face anyways, to communicate this welcoming experience. But the fun part about it for me was, is this going to work out? How is this all going to play out? And we brought, at the end of the meeting, some of the ladies didn't have a ride home, and the woman who was the translator only had so many spots in her car. So I said, could I give you a ride home? And one of the women could speak English enough where she could kind of communicate so that we could all make it work and everybody could get where they needed to go. But as we were going, I thought, hey, do you want to see it was nighttime, it's like 8 o'clock at night, and I was like, do you want to see the garden? And they were like, yeah, sure. I was like, we're kind of going that way anyway. So we pull up, and I remember it to this day. We pull up, and my truck was facing the garden, and it was just all soil, and it was just fresh beds. We had made like raised beds in the ground. We didn't have the physical borders around them like we do now, but it was just all this beautiful soil, and it had been recently tilled, which just looks nice. Anybody who gardens knows that that's a great looking thing to see that. And we pulled up, and the lights were on this soil, and I was like, this is the place, like, and the ladies got out, and the best part about this was the ladies put their hands in the soil, and they just picked it up, and they were so happy. They were so happy. Like, it wasn't about, there was no tomatoes to eat. There was no food. We weren't doing anything. It was nighttime, and we were just in soil, and I was like, and they all just, at that moment, it was like, this is the right thing to do right now. There was a lot of talk at the time, this was 8 years ago, there was a lot of talk about immigrant populations and refugee populations and how to be a welcoming city to new Americans. And so it was just like, wow, this is the right time, this is the right place. And ever since then, that's all we've focused on, is every day is like, what's the next right thing that we should be doing? And it's kind of like I think that's also a quote from Frozen 2. If anybody's seen that, really good movie. And as I watched it, I was like, this is exactly what the world needs, like this, if only you could do the thing with the ice. But so that's kind of that's what I wanted to share to kind of open. I'll come back. We're going to also have some sharing about the Little Free Farmstand and connecting with the community and connecting with the neighbors and experience from hearing from other people instead of, so I'll be back with a little more info. But I just wanted to share that story with you about kind of where we're coming from and why we're here and why we're making an effort to continually connect with people and allow them to kind of share in communion with something with us. And food is like such a good topic for that, because it's like, we love it. We love talking about it. We love eating it. We love anything to do with it. Food fights are even fun, right? It's like anything food related, and people can talk to each other, and you can give something to somebody else, which sometimes if you don't have much, giving someone a meal or giving them, it's like food, there's a quote, food is love. Like it's just a great connector, and it's also not something that's really contentious. So we can kind of fly under the radar and just be like, we're food, we're good, don't worry about us. And that's great. It's a really great thing to be able to be an organization in a community where you're just like, we're just food, we're cool. Like we're not saying do this or do that or don't do this or we believe in that or we don't believe in this. It's just like, hey, we're food, we're one people, and we all need it and we all share it. So I'll pass to Peggy now.
I'm going to start my reflection with a reading called Be About the Work by Andrea Hawkins Camper. May we see all as it is, and may it all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? If not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to do, and this is the call we answer now. To be the barrier and the bridge. To be the living embodiment of our principles. To be about the work of building the beloved community. To be a people of intention and a people of conscience. So I've been trying to remember exactly how I got involved in the work of the Little Free Farmstand. Somehow at the beginning, Justin approached our church, Grow Nashua approached our church with this concept, and I thought, what a great idea. I definitely want to be part of that, like gathering fruits and vegetables and giving them out to people who otherwise might not have them. Because, especially for those of us who garden, even mediocrely like me, there's always excess of something. Even if nothing else grows, you have a lot of like one thing, right? And it's all ready at the same time. So it's awesome to be able to just bring it to someone who might not otherwise have it, or not have fresh vegetables. So that's fabulous. The first several years were definitely an experiment, and a lot of people working together. So I'll just say kind of what I did. We did a lot of Zoom conversations leading up to it. Then Steve Hedges built the farm stand, the beautiful farm stand, which is awesome. And then in 2020 was the first year that we opened, and it was a great experience for me because we were all on Zoom then, but I got to actually come to the church grounds for the farm stands and see people in real life, masked outside, but still, that was really special. That year we had gleaners, and I didn't know before this what a gleaner was, so in case you don't, I will tell you. They are people who go to the farms, local farms, and pick the vegetables that either I think they have too much of, or they're just too ugly, or whatever, the ones that they're not going to even bother to harvest, and the gleaners will take all of those and bring them. And so they wanted to deliver them on Friday, and we weren't having our farm stand open until Sunday. The original idea to have it open on Sundays was because people could bring their vegetables to church, but we weren't actually coming to church then. But, so we needed someplace to store the vegetables, and we have an extra fridge in our house, so they would deliver to me on Fridays, and we would find a way to shove these large boxes of vegetables, and sometimes it was trickier than others because sometimes there was a lot, but we would put them in the fridge until Sunday morning, and then I would drive them over here. Then the next year, I believe they found a different solution to the gleaners. But then the next year there was a donation station and the farmers market, and that was a great idea too. But somebody had to man the donation station, and somebody had to pick up the donations and bring it here. I ended up picking up the donations and bringing it here most weeks. And then last year, I was like almost not involved at all, which I thought was great because it meant everything was kind of running smoothly, and they added more farm stands. So I think a lot of the food went from one to the other. This year, I have a little donation station from Grow Nashua in my yard, and anybody can drop off fruits and vegetables there, and someone from Grow Nashua comes by every day and picks it up and brings it somewhere in different places. I'm sure Justin can talk about where, if it's not our day for a Lil Free Farmstand, it will go somewhere else. But I think that's great because I can, if something's ripe on Monday, I don't have to try to keep it for the weekend. I can put it right there, and it will get taken to someone who needs it. So I think that's, so important. So I haven't been to the actual farm stand very much, except for when the first couple years when I dropped off. So the other people who are talking are people who are at the farm stand when they're giving the vegetables out. But from my side, I've seen more of where the vegetables have come from. But we're all part of that same bridge that was referenced in the reading that I did. We're all making that bridge. And so none of us has to do the work alone. I feel like, I haven't done that much, but everything counts, even if you donate a tomato. If everybody donates a tomato, then you have a lot of tomatoes. So, by contributing in a small way, building the stand, manning the stand, or even driving someone else's veggies to the stand, we end up doing something much bigger than we could have done alone. I knew I was missing something. Tess George is going to talk next. She cannot be here today, but she sent in a video.
Hi, everyone. Really sorry I can't be with you today, but I'm really happy for this opportunity to say a few words about Grow Nashua. So several years back, I was sitting by myself at home and I was having the thought, you know, we really need some sort of community garden. We really need some way to really, you know, get gardeners and people who need vegetables together. And I was thinking about how am I going to get this started? And I was talking to my daughter and she said, you know, before you do get going with that, maybe you should find out if something like that already exists. And you know, much to my chagrin, I found out not only did it exist, but unsurprisingly, right, our church was a partner with that. So as soon as I found that out, I got involved right away. And I think this is my 3rd year and I've been loving it. And for a number of reasons, you know, first of all, it's just such a nice way to connect with people. And the people who come to the stand, have some differences, you know, than from my life. They're not the same religion as I am frequently. They're from a different culture, different background, you know, different ethnic background, different economic situation. You know, they live in a different neighborhood. And, you know, James Beard said that food is our common ground. It's a universal experience. And so it's just really nice to be able to bond with those folks over food and to create friendships. And this being my 3rd summer staffing the stand, I really do have friendships with the folks who come to the stand, and it's just so nice. And at the end of the summer, we're all hugging and saying goodbye and can't wait to see you, you know, early next summer. And so I will miss them in the interim. You know, the other thing is that I love to garden and I grow a lot of vegetables, and sometimes, you know, your eggplant just goes crazy, you know, and you just have more eggplants than you can possibly use, or your tomatoes or whatever, green beans. And so it's just really nice to have a place to take it where you know that people really want it and people can really use it. You know, this is much better than leaving bags of groceries in parked cars with open windows, you know, leaving bags of vegetables, I mean to say, you know, sometimes you just don't know what to do with those vegetables. So it's really nice to be able to share that, as Grow Nashua says, sharing from our abundance. It's just a really nice feeling. And as I'm sure Justin is going to mention, or maybe has mentioned already, Grow Nashua has a number of programs. They have the community gardens, they have the farm stands, they have the truck, and then also Jessie Monroe, Justin's wife, does educational programs in some of the underserved schools, and I've been working with Jessie through the school year, mostly in Mount Pleasant, and that has been really nice, and you know, have had really good experiences with the kids, and Jessie puts together wonderful programs that the kids just really love. And that brings me to my last point, which is just that Jessie and Justin are just wonderful people, and I just so enjoy working with them. They have such a well-run organization. They treat volunteers so well. And it's just, they just make working with them such a pleasure. And I just truly think that they are just such a gift to our community. So that's my thoughts on Grow Nashua, and thank you. Again, sorry I can't be there, but I hope that you enjoy the rest of the service. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. As I moved toward retirement in 2015, I began to volunteer for our community dinner program. The Free to Anyone dinner we we provided one Sunday evening every month. I quickly began to see the individuals who showed up every month, grateful to have a good meal and to be welcomed with smiles. But the pandemic put an end to the gathering of community dinner. The pandemic also increased the numbers of people with food insecurity, and within a few months, along came Grow Nashua, a bunch of great volunteers here in the church, and our Lil Free Farmstand. Deep into the pandemic and a bout with shingles, I did not participate at all in that first year. In 2021, I think I volunteered once just to see what it was all about. In 2022, I became a semi-regular, and this year I've signed up for most weeks, and I got the t-shirt. First, our community dinner program, and now our Lil Free Farmstand offer me a way to live out my values and my UU principles. I want to share a reading this morning, Choosing to Connect, written by Priscilla Shumway, who belongs to a UU congregation in Charleston, South Carolina. Every Saturday morning, my husband and I rise early and head off to volunteer at our local food bank. The food bank is supported by people from 28 different congregations, including our Unitarian Church. After we set up, volunteers gather as our director reads a Bible passage and a prayer. As a UU and an atheist, these prayers initially caused me discomfort. As I stood listening, all I heard were the many things that I did not agree with. But by focusing on the things I disagreed with, I created a sense of separateness, of judgment between me and the others. Over 2 years, as my relationship with the other volunteers and the mission of the outreach has deepened, there's been a change in my relationship to these prayers. Now, during the prayer, I hear the sentiments I agree with rather than those I disagree with. I agree that we all give of our time, talent, and treasure to do this work, that the work we do is important in the lives of our clients, that we who volunteer are called to do this work. But who or what is calling us? This is where the prayers and I diverge. The prayers suggest we are called to do this work because God directs our life and calls us to it. But as an atheist, I feel called to do this work because of my belief that with every act and choice I make, I can create a better world. While I may have little control over the larger world, I can help create a better world in my own neighborhood, one client, one connection at a time. Now, as I pray with my friends, I feel a deep sense of connection to them and the sacredness of this work we are all called to do. I realize it is my actions and choices that determine my connection to others. Now it no longer matters to me who or what is calling each of us, only that we show up in love and faith to do the work of creating a better world. May we continue to become more mindful of that which connects us rather than that which separates us. May we always remember that the acts and choices we make are sacred as we work to create a better world.
Showing up is so important. Every day, in your own way, in your own capacity. How many people in here, just by show of hands, grow vegetables? Oh, okay, fair amount. How many like to eat vegetables? Oh, okay. I was trying to see who didn't raise their hand. So how many people have had an experience where you've been at a place, like, look at all those vegetables up there, and you see that vegetable and you're like, oh, I want it. It might be a pepper, it might be a perfectly ripe apple, but how many people have had an experience where you've seen the fruit or vegetable and you've been like, I have to eat that right now? Raise your hand. Yeah, you've had that happen too. You were last to raise your hand, but you thought of that plum. Oh man, so good. On the beach, when you're sitting on the beach and your mom's like, I have plums. And you're like, I have plums? Oh my goodness. So that is the type of thing that every vegetable matters. Even one. Peggy said, you have this one vegetable and it goes into this bigger pool of many other vegetables. And then the stand gets full. And the stand's only full and only there because someone built the stand, right? And the only reason why we had a place to put the stand was because someone else said, hey, you could put the stand out here. So it's like and then that person who said we could put it out there maybe has never done anything else, but they played that important role. And that is where we all have our own gifts and our own talents, and it's super important for us to use those talents, think about places where those talents would be valuable, and to share those talents. And it's helpful both in the act of the actual function that you're trying to do, and the thing that you're trying to do is provide vegetables to people. So on a very concrete level, they're taking vegetables, they're putting them in a bag, and they're going to bring them home and eat them. But what we're hearing is that connecting with people and connecting with neighbors, and Sarah was sharing earlier, listening to neighbors share stories in line or talk about recipes in line that see each other each week. Like creating those spaces and all that intangible stuff that happens is kind of like the magic. It's those experiences where your participation at whatever level it was made it possible for, Lee had shared a story when I first arrived about a young man who's 11 years old and was at the stand recently and was telling people, hey, here's the stand. We got fresh veggies. You want some? He was there. He felt though it was his stand, right? The neighbor felt like it was his stand to tell someone else coming by, Lee in this example, that she could come and get some vegetables. It's sharing. It's not, he wasn't in a space where that probably felt really good for him to be able to share. I don't know what his situation was in his home life or how often he has opportunities to share, but in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that little triangle with all the things, you got like food and safety and security, but when you get down there and into the lower levels, like sharing is a really important part of what we need as humans. It's the thing is a triangle, but shelter is here, but you also need that ability to feel that you can give to someone else. So this gives opportunities for any one of our gardeners in our community gardens to be able to share some extra produce that they might have. It gives anyone in the community that has a garden anywhere the ability to share. And so that's a real human thing that we need. And I guess what I would leave you with today and what I would offer to, I'm gonna hang out after and down in the gathering here is get active. Like find something that you can take your skills and your gifts, and you might be really good at anything. You might be good at talking to people. You might be good at, you could be growing food. It could just be you're good at showing up on time for stuff. You might be a really good driver, and maybe someone needs a ride someplace. That's a lot of people in this world. You might have a really nice smile, and you could make someone feel welcome just by being there and having your presence. And the other thing that does is it puts you in the presence of someone else, and it gives you an opportunity to possibly have a conversation with that other person and to hear some of their story. And then that informs you of possibly where they're coming from. It builds empathy. It's super important for that to be cultivated in our community. And Grow Nashua and the work that we do in the community is as much filling up people's bags with tomatoes and cucumbers and Peggy's refrigerator, which it was like normal people put 3-4 cucumbers in their fridge. This was like boxes of like 80 cucumbers, and she was putting them in her fridge. So that made a difference, and that made it possible for us to be here. Our first year, we shared out 1,500 pounds, 1,500. This year, we already shared out 16,000 pounds. That's a lot of bags. That's like a bag of groceries is like 20 pounds, 15 pounds. That's a lot. That's like 1,000 plastic bags, 1,000 plastic bags of groceries with fresh food. And it's food that people are like, wow, where did you get this food? Because the system that we have set up in our society for fresh food is about big ag creating food that gets it into the grocery stores. The grocery stores don't want it anymore. They pass it down to the pantries. I don't know about you, but I've been to grocery stores before, and I look for the fresh produce that's on the shelf. I don't want the stuff that doesn't look so good, and that's what's taking another day to make it to the pantries, and then another day for someone to take it off the shelf at the pantry, and then another day to cook it. So we're talking 4 or 5 days out, versus this is, Peggy picked it, she put it in the donation station, we picked it up that same morning at 11:30, and we gave it out at 1:30, and the kid was eating the apple right there. Boom. Fresh. Nutrient dense. Gives them the energy, gives them the power to do what they need to do next. So those things are the intangibles, and I would say that Grow Nashua in general is all about the intangibles. You could look at our website and you could see, oh, they do X, Y, and Z, but we are connecting with community members, and we really envision people being able to be active together and to be truly connected, where we can do great things together in the same way that if you have something that happens in the community that's not good, and we could leverage what Grow Nashua does, like the asphalt plant that they wanted to build over here. We could leverage our network of the people who can't afford food and the people who can afford to pay to throw away their food. Those are two different networks. And when the planning board got the 500 letters on their desk that went through the mayor's office that said, we don't want an asphalt plant, and the planning board looked at those, the planning board saw, oh yeah, there were people in the neighborhood that live there that are saying they don't want it. But we also have a whole bunch of neighbors who live on Concord Street and who live up in another neighborhood where people have a lot of money. And what do those people often do? Those people are often the squeakiest wheels. So we had people who are typically oppressed in the neighborhood who do not usually have a voice with an avenue to share their voice, but you also have people who are in different communities in the neighborhood, so the planning board can see we have a whole picture, we have everybody involved. And that's what we need more of. Both on the, hey, let's stop the bad guys, and on the, hey, let's do some good stuff. So that could be our future. You're here, we're together, we're all showing up, whether it's a little bit and it's just a tomato, or it's volunteering every week this summer at the Lil Free Farmstand. It's all important. So thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me to be here. And thank you for the experience today of being within your community in this lovely faith service. This was really nice to be part of. Thank you.